Most people think cucumber season is basically over by the middle of summer. The plants look tired, the leaves are getting spotty, the cucumbers are coming slower than they did in June. And so gardeners everywhere quietly give up on them. They stop feeding, they stop paying attention, they let those plants coast into the end of the season. That is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make in the entire growing year. Expensive in cucumbers. In pounds of food you are leaving on the table. Because here is the truth almost nobody talks about. The second half of summer can outproduce the first half. Not match it. Beat it. By midsummer, your cucumber plants are no longer fragile seedlings figuring out how to grow. They are mature. They have deep established root systems, a full canopy of leaves. They are biologically at the peak of their power. And a plant at the peak of its power, given the right care, will pump out cucumbers faster and heavier than it ever did in early summer. I have watched this happen in my own garden year after year. Late July, all through August, I am carrying in baskets of cucumbers while neighbors down the street are pulling shriveled brown vines out of the ground. Same climate, same heat, same rain. The only difference is what we did with the plants in the second half of the season. Today, I am handing you that exact difference. First, the 5 strategies that will double your cucumber harvest for the rest of the summer. Then, the only 3 homemade sprays you will ever need. Sprays that handle disease, pests, and nutrition completely. Made from things sitting in your kitchen right now for almost no money. Stay with me all the way through, because the sprays in the second half are what protect and fuel everything we build in the first half. Let's get into it. Now, before we go one step further, I want to talk to you directly for a moment. If you are the kind of person who wants real, practical, hard-earned growing knowledge, the kind that actually holds up in a real backyard, in real weather, not recycled tips copied from 10 other channels, then you are in exactly the right place. Every single week, I put out complete guides just like this one. I break down the problems nobody else explains properly. I show you homemade solutions that cost almost nothing. And I pass along the kind of deep, practical growing wisdom that used to travel from one gardener to the next across the fence before most of it got lost. So, do me one small favor before we continue. Tap that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell right next to it. It costs you nothing. It takes 1 second, but it means the next video that could save your harvest lands right in front of you instead of getting lost in the shuffle. Thousands of gardeners are already growing more food because of what we share here every week. And I would genuinely love for you to be one of them. Go ahead and do that now. I will wait. Done? Good. Now, let's get back to those cucumbers. Before we fix anything, you need to understand why cucumber plants slow down in the middle of summer. Because once you understand the why, every fix I give you afterward makes complete, obvious sense. There are 4 real reasons. The first is nutrient depletion. Cucumbers are heavy feeders. That is not a casual phrase. It means they pull an enormous quantity of nutrients out of the soil to fuel their growth and their fruiting. Think about what the plant does. Long vines, dozens of flowers, fruit after fruit after fruit. And each cucumber is almost entirely water and plant sugars the plant had to manufacture. All of that comes at a cost, and that cost is soil nutrition. By midsummer, a productive cucumber plant has stripped much of the available nutrition out of the soil around its roots. If you have not been replacing it, the plant simply hits empty. It cannot produce on fumes, so it slows down to survive. The second reason is heat and water stress. Cucumbers love warmth, but there is a limit. When daytime temperatures climb into the 90s and stay there, the plant shifts into survival mode. It slows or pauses fruit production because making fruit is expensive, and staying alive comes first. Add inconsistent watering on top of that heat, and the problem multiplies. Cucumbers are 96% water. When the soil swings from bone, dry to soaked and back again, the plant lives in constant stress. And a stressed plant is not a productive plant. The third reason is the one most gardeners never think about, and it is quietly the most important. The plant is trying to make seeds. Understand this, and you understand cucumbers completely. A cucumber plant does not exist to feed you. It exists to reproduce. Every cucumber is really just a vessel for seeds. When you let a cucumber grow large and start to yellow on the vine, the seeds inside are maturing. And the moment the plant senses it has produced a batch of mature seeds, it gets a powerful biological signal. Mission accomplished. Its work is done. It can stop making new flowers and new fruit. This is why a plant with a few big, forgotten, overgrown cucumbers on it will often stop producing almost entirely. Those overgrown fruits are broadcasting a shutdown signal to the whole plant. The fourth reason is disease and pest pressure that has been building all season. Fungal spores and insect populations do not appear overnight. They build. By midsummer, powdery mildew has had weeks to establish. Aphid and spider mite colonies have exploded. And here is the key. A plant busy defending itself against disease and insects cannot put that energy into making cucumbers. Every leaf lost to mildew is a leaf no longer photosynthesizing. Every colony of aphids is draining sap that should be filling fruit. So, there are your four reasons: nutrient depletion, heat and water stress, the seed production shutdown signal, and accumulated disease and pest pressure. Every one is fixable. Let's fix all four. The first strategy to double your harvest is aggressive, consistent harvesting. And I want you to really absorb this one because it sounds backward until you understand it. How does picking more cucumbers give you more cucumbers? Here is exactly why. Go back to that seed production signal. The plant's entire purpose is to produce mature seeds. That is its finish line. Now, here is the trick. When you harvest cucumbers young, before the seeds inside have matured, you are removing the fruit before the plant ever crosses that finish line. From the plant's point of view, it has failed to reproduce. So, what does it do? It tries again. More flowers, more fruit. Another attempt. And if you keep harvesting young, it keeps failing, which means it keeps trying. Over and over, all season long. You are, in the most literal sense, tricking the plant into continuous production. Every cucumber you pick young is a message that says, "Not yet. Keep going. Try again." And it will. So, here is your rule for the rest of the summer. And treat it as non-negotiable. Walk your plants every single day. Not every few days, every day. Cucumbers grow shockingly fast in summer heat. A fruit that looks too small this morning can be perfect tomorrow and oversized the day after. Pick every cucumber the moment it reaches usable size and deliberately err on the smaller side. A slightly small cucumber is crisp, sweet, and tells the plant to keep working. A large one starts shutting it down, and this part is critical. If you find an oversized cucumber you missed, fat, pale, starting to yellow, pick it and remove it immediately, even if you do not plan to eat it. Do not leave it on the vine out of guilt or hope. That single overgrown cucumber is actively suppressing the entire plant. Getting it off releases the plant to start producing again. Harvest daily. Harvest young. Harvest ruthlessly. If you do nothing else from this video, do this, and you will watch production climb within a single week. The second strategy is to feed the plant heavily and correctly, because correctly matters just as much as heavily. Your cucumber plant is running on empty by midsummer. You have to refuel it. But here is where most people go wrong. They grab whatever fertilizer is in the shed, usually something high in nitrogen, and dump it on. Then they are confused when they get a giant lush jungle of a plant covered in leaves with barely any cucumbers. Here is the science to hold on to. Nitrogen drives leafy vegetative growth. It builds vines and foliage. Phosphorus and potassium drive flowering and fruiting. At this stage of the season, you do not want more leaves. You already have plenty of plant. You want fruit. So you feed for fruit, which means lower nitrogen and richer potassium and phosphorus. I am giving you the exact homemade recipe for this in the spray section coming up. But the principle to lock in right now is this. From this point forward, feed your cucumbers every 7 to 10 days without fail. A consistently well-fed cucumber plant in late summer will outproduce a neglected one 3 to 1. Feeding is the fuel behind everything else in this system. The third strategy is to renew the plant through selective pruning. This one feels a little scary the first time, but it works beautifully. By midsummer, your cucumber vines are almost certainly a tangled, crowded mess. Old, yellowing leaves near the base, dead growth, stems crossing over each other, dense, congested areas where no air moves and no light penetrates. All of that old material is a drain. It costs energy to maintain leaves that are barely photosynthesizing anymore. That is energy stolen directly from fruit. So, here is what you do. Go through the plant and remove the old, yellowing, and damaged leaves down near the base. Remove any leaf showing disease spots or mildew, and thin out the most congested areas so air and sunlight can reach into the center of the plant. This does two powerful things at once. It redirects the plant's energy away from propping up dead weight and channels it into new growth and new fruit. And it dramatically improves airflow, which is your single best defense against the fungal diseases that shut cucumber plants down in humid late summer. Moving air keeps leaves dry, and dry leaves resist fungus. One warning: do not get carried away. Never remove more than about a third of the plant's foliage at one time, or you will shock it. But a thoughtful cleanup gives a midsummer cucumber plant a genuine second wind, and watching it push out fresh, vigorous growth afterward is one of the more satisfying things in the garden. The fourth strategy is to fix your watering to match the heat. Cucumbers are 96% water, and late summer heat is relentless. Inconsistent watering is the fastest way to halt production. And it is also the #1 cause of that bitter taste that ruins so many homegrown cucumbers. When a plant dries out, gets flooded, then dries out again, that stress cycle triggers bitter compounds and causes the plant to abort developing fruit. Here is how to water correctly, deeply, and consistently, keeping the soil evenly moist down to a depth of 6 to 8 inches, where the working roots live. Do not give a light sprinkle every day. That only wets the surface and encourages shallow roots. Water thoroughly and deeply 2 to 3 times a week, right at the base, early in the morning so the plant is fully charged before the heat hits. And then, mulch. If you take one single thing from this section, let it be this. Lay down a 3-inch layer of straw, shredded leaves, or grass clippings around the base of every plant. Mulch holds moisture so the plant never dries out suddenly. It keeps the root zone cool during brutal heat waves, and it smooths out the wet-dry swings that stress the plant and cause bitterness. Mulch alone can be the difference between a plant that quits in early August and one that produces heavily into fall. The fifth strategy is one experienced growers use and beginners almost never think of. Start a fresh succession planting right now. Here is the mindset shift. You do not have to rely solely on the plants you already have. Those plants will eventually age out, no matter how well you care for them. That is just biology. But across most of the United States and much of Europe, when you hit midsummer, there is still plenty of growing season left. More than enough to raise an entire new round of cucumbers from scratch. Cucumbers are fast. Many varieties go from seed to first harvest in just 50 to 60 days. So, if you plant a fresh batch of seeds right now, those young plants will hit their stride and come into full production right around the time your current plants begin to fade. The two waves overlap, and that overlap is the secret to a harvest that just keeps going. Weeks longer than any single planting could manage alone. You do not need much space. Drop a few new seeds into a spare corner, into a large container, or into the gap left by a crop you have already finished. In 2 months, while your neighbors are done for the year, you will have young, vigorous plants loaded with fresh cucumbers. That is the complete 5-part system. Aggressive daily harvesting, heavy, correct feeding, renewal pruning, fixed, deep, mulched watering, and a fresh succession planting. Now, let's move into what protects and supercharges every bit of it. The only 3 homemade sprays you will ever need. Spray number 1 is your disease defense spray. This is the baking soda spray, and it is the most effective homemade tool against the 2 fungal diseases that murder cucumber production in late summer: powdery mildew and downy mildew. Powdery mildew shows up as a white, dusty coating on the leaves, usually starting on the older, lower leaves and working up. In warm, humid conditions, it spreads with frightening speed. And here is why it is so devastating. As that coating spreads across a leaf, it blocks the leaf from photosynthesizing. Photosynthesis is how the plant makes energy. Less energy means fewer cucumbers, often none at all. Across the humid summers of the United States and much of Europe, this is the single biggest killer of late-season cucumber harvests. Here is the spray. Into 1 gallon of water, add 1 TBSP of baking soda, 1 TSP of liquid dish soap, and 1 TBSP of vegetable oil. Stir it thoroughly. Here is why each ingredient is there. The baking soda raises the surface pH of the leaf, creating an alkaline environment fungal spores cannot survive on. The oil coats the leaf and helps the mixture cling instead of running off. And the dish soap is an emulsifier. It helps the oil and water blend and spread evenly rather than beading up. Application matters enormously. Spray both the tops and the undersides of the leaves. Apply early in the morning or in the evening, never in the heat of the day, and never in direct hot sun, because oil on a leaf in full sun can scorch the foliage. Use it once a week as prevention, and every 4 to 5 days if you can already see mildew appearing. Now, here is a variation many longtime gardeners swear by. Instead of baking soda, make a milk spray. Mix 1 part milk to 2 parts water and spray it on the leaves. It sounds strange, but the proteins in milk react with sunlight to produce a natural antifungal effect, and it genuinely suppresses powdery mildew. My recommendation: alternate between the 2 through the season. Rotating them gives you better, more resilient protection than relying on either alone. Spray number 2 is your pest control spray. This is the neem and soap spray, and it deals with the insects that take over cucumber plants by midsummer. Aphids, spider mites, whiteflies, and to some degree, cucumber beetles. By late summer, these populations have had all season to multiply, and they explode. Aphids gather in dense clusters on the tender new growth and flower stems, sucking out sap that should be going into fruit. Spider mites, which thrive in hot, dry conditions, drain leaves until they look bronzed and lifeless. Cucumber beetles chew on flowers and spread bacterial disease as they go. Every one of these is stealing energy that belongs in your cucumbers. Here is the spray. Into 1 gallon of water, add 2 TP of neem oil and 1 TSP of liquid dish soap. Stir thoroughly and keep shaking as you use it, because oil and water constantly want to separate. Neem oil works by disrupting the feeding behavior and life cycle of soft-bodied insects, interfering with their ability to feed molt and reproduce without poisoning your plant. And it breaks down relatively quickly, which makes it far gentler on your garden ecosystem than a harsh synthetic pesticide. Spray both sides of every leaf, paying special attention to the undersides because that is where pests hide and lay their eggs. And here is the single most important rule with this spray. So, listen closely. Spray it in the evening after the bees have finished foraging and gone home for the day. This is not optional. Cucumbers depend on bees for pollination. No bees, no pollinated flowers, no fruit. Neem can harm bees if sprayed directly on them while they are active. By spraying in the evening once they have left, the spray settles and dries, and your pollinators are completely protected. Reapply every 5 to 7 days until the pests are under control. Spray number 3 is your growth and fruit booster. This one is different from the first 2. Those are protective. This one is a nutritional feed, the potassium and phosphorus fuel I promised you earlier, and it is what powers heavy sustained fruit production for the rest of the season. This is a combined banana peel and compost tea. Here is how you make it. Take 4 or 5 banana peels and chop them up. Add 2 generous handfuls of finished compost. Put both into a 5-gallon bucket and fill it with water. Let it steep for 2 to 3 days, stirring once a day. Here is why it works. Banana peels are extraordinarily rich in potassium, and potassium is precisely what a cucumber plant needs to set flowers and fill out fruit. As the peels steep, that potassium leaches into the water. The compost releases a balanced range of nutrients, along with beneficial soil microbes that feed both the plant and the living soil around its roots. Together, they create a complete potassium-forward fruiting fertilizer, perfectly suited to what a late-season cucumber plant is craving. After steeping, strain out the solids, dilute the liquid roughly 1 part tea to 1 part water, and pour it around the base of each plant once a week. This delivers precisely the nutrients a depleted, hard-working, late-season cucumber plant is starving for. Combine this feeding with aggressive daily harvest, and you have the 1-2 punch of this entire system, the combination that genuinely, measurably doubles production. So, there are your 3 sprays: baking soda or milk for disease, neem and soap for pests, banana peel compost tea for fruit. Disease, pests, and nutrition all handled for almost no money with things from your kitchen. Now, a few advanced details that separate a good harvest from a truly incredible one. First, trellising. If your cucumbers are sprawling across the ground right now, you are losing harvest and inviting disease. Cucumbers were built to climb. Train them up a trellis or a net, and 3 things happen at once. The fruit hangs down cleanly, growing straight instead of curling on the soil where it rots. Air circulates freely, which slashes fungal disease, and every leaf gets full sun, which means more energy for fruit. If your plants are on the ground, it is not too late. Gently lift the main vines onto a support. The plant will reward you within days. Second, know your flowers. Male flowers sit on thin, straight stems. Female flowers have a tiny miniature cucumber at the base. That swelling is the fruit waiting to develop if it gets pollinated. If you see female flowers with those tiny cucumbers shriveling and dropping instead of growing, that is a pollination failure, which brings me to hand pollination, your secret weapon when bees are scarce. The fix takes 4 minutes. In the morning, take a small dry paintbrush. Brush the inside of a male flower to pick up pollen. Then gently brush it into the center of each open female flower. That is it. You have done the bee's job. Do this every morning for a week during a slow patch, and you will see fruit set jump. And finally, pay attention. Walk your garden every day, not just to harvest, but to look. The gardeners who get astonishing harvests are not working harder. They are noticing sooner. They spot the first speck of mildew before it spreads. They catch the aphid colony when it is 10 insects instead of 10,000. 5 minutes of real attention every morning is worth more than any product you can buy. Let me pull it all together into a simple routine, because consistency is what makes this work. Every single day, harvest everything that has reached usable size. Never skip a day. This is the most important habit in the entire system. Once a week, do your maintenance round. Apply the baking soda or milk spray. Inspect for pests, and apply the neem spray that evening if you see them building. And pour your banana peel compost tea around the base of each plant. Every couple of weeks, do a quick cleanup. Remove old, yellowing, and diseased leaves, thin, crowded growth, and keep your watering rocks solid the entire time. Deep watering 2 to 3 times a week, always over well-mulched soil. Daily harvest, weekly spray and feed, bi-weekly cleanup, consistent deep watering. Follow that rhythm, and your cucumber plants will keep producing right up until the first frost, long after every other garden on your street has been pulled up and given up on. Here is the heart of it. The reason most people end up with a disappointing cucumber harvest is not bad luck. It is not poor soil. It is that they treat the second half of summer like the end of the story. They ease off the feeding, they stop protecting, they stop harvesting aggressively. And they do it at the precise moment when their mature, deep-rooted, fully established plants are capable of producing the most food of the entire year. You now know better. A well-fed, well-protected, aggressively harvested cucumber plant in late summer is not winding down. It is at the peak of its powers. So, do not give up on your cucumbers. Do not pull those vines yet. The best half of the season may still be ahead of you. If this gave you a real, usable plan, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more gardeners. And share it with someone who thinks their cucumber season is already over. And if you have not subscribed yet, tap that button and turn on the bell so the next guide lands right in front of you. Now, go check your cucumbers. If this guide changed the way you look at your summer garden, please subscribe and like the video. We are uncovering the deep gardening wisdom that the world has tried to forget. Let's grow a more abundant future together. The next harvest secret will be revealed very soon.